This is going to be a Neofinetia falcata repotting instructional video. First thing you should have when you're going to be repotting these is a pair of pruning shears. These come in very handy when trimming leaves, old flower stems, and dead roots. There are two types of sphagnum moss that we use when we repot these plants. One is the standard New Zealand sphagnum moss, which is often called 3A grade. And then on this half, I've got the 5A grade, which comes loose layered. It's very long strands of sphagnum moss, perfect for wrapping these plants in. This is going to be the traditional Japanese style, and there's two methods of repotting these. But first, let's begin with this one, which is variety Kogane Nishiki. You can tell by the algae that's been growing on the sphagnum moss that it's ready for repotting. Generally, we try to repot in the month of March, right before the new root system emerges, so that they can be displayed with new root tips coming down the fresh sphagnum moss. However, you can repot these any time of the year if you feel necessary. So the first step is to remove the old sphagnum moss. I like to remove it when it's slightly damp. It's not uncommon to lose a big portion of the root system, especially if you've been watering a lot throughout the winter. Generally, they like drier conditions in the winter, so if they stay too moist, you end up losing a lot of the root system. However, in the springtime, all the root system comes right back from the plant as long as the growths are healthy. I would say this is a little more than normal for dead roots. It looks like we did lose the entire root system in this, but it's not uncommon, and the plants do bounce right back. The dead roots are going to be the ones that are desiccated, hollow, or not firm. They don't have any substance to them. Often you can just pull them off as well without having to cut them. But it's much easier, faster, and cleaner to have yourself a pair of pruning shears. You want to get the majority of the root off. If you leave old dead roots on when you repot, you open the plant up to exposure to bacteria that could still be eating away at the old roots. I also recommend sterilizing the pruning shears between each plant to prevent spreading any possible bacteria, fungus, or virus that could be present. I'm also going to trim off the old leaves. In many cases you can hold the axis, wiggle until it falls off, but to be safer so you don't damage anything, using the pruning shears is the best option. If you're not sure if you're cutting a variegated leaf or a yellowed leaf, just leave them alone because they will eventually dry up and fall off on their own. Here we have the plant cleaned up, and now it's ready for a repot. First method I will show is using a water bottle. This is a common method to use for a beginner. I would say this is the training wheels way of repotting. Take yourself a handful of standard New Zealand 3A moss, make a patty out of it, and set it over the water bottle. This creates your basic shape, the mound. Set the plant on top of it. In most cases, it will just rest on top. Spread the roots evenly over the moss. I like to take about 4 to 6 strands at a time of the long fiber moss and approach the plant from the side, about a 45-degree angle down and around the base of the plant. These are long strands. You can wrap around more than once sometimes. I like to wrap descending from top to bottom. Once you've done one side, turn the plant to do the other side. Once again, I've grabbed several strands of 5A moss Wrap from the other side, around and down, 45-degree angle. This is your basic shape. You can now remove the plant from the water bottle. Sometimes you'll have to cut off or pull off extra strands of moss. In this case, it's not too much, and I know it will fit back into my K35 plastic Neo pot. These pots are available in two sizes, K30 and K35, both of which you can find on our website, OrchidWeb.com. Once it's in the pot, you can fine-tune it. I see there's some loose strands here. Sometimes you can even fish out longer fibers in the standard grade sphagnum moss. But what I'll do is I'll go over the loose ends and then tuck the ends of the strands of moss into the pot. Which helps to sculpt the overall mound. This is method 1. This is method 2 of repotting a Neofinetia falcata. Here we have a needle leaf variety called Awa Hari Beni. We're going to remove the old sphagnum moss. In this case, we have a very healthy root system, and there really aren't any dead roots to remove whatsoever, so we can move right on to the next step. On the previous method, we used a water bottle as our base. This is a slightly more advanced method, which is freehand. Take your standard 3A New Zealand sphagnum moss, make a wad of moss with your hand. Not too tight, you don't want the plants to stay too wet for too long. Just slightly firm. Place this under the root system. Since I'm right-handed, I hold with my left hand and wrap with my right. Once you've got the mound made and you're holding it in place with your left hand, take your other hand, grab several strands of long moss, and simply start to wrap, using both hands to pull the moss around the root system. Here I've done one side, and turn it around for the other. Once you've perfected this method, it's actually much faster to use than the bottle method. I'll take several long fibers and wrap them from the other side, around and down. I will pull off some of the excess moss. If you have an excessive amount of roots, which I did not, if you have an excessive amount coming down, let's say a foot to a foot and a half beyond the plant, it is okay to remove all the roots from about 6 to 8 inches down from the base of the axis of the plant. The new root system will emerge. This will not hurt the plant, it will not set it back, and it's often the only way you can keep the plant controlled in a particular, when you're trying to pot in the K30 or K35 size. I've often seen up to 100 growths in one of the smaller K35 pots just by simply controlling the root system. When I lower it in the pot, I like to give it a little twist. You may break some roots when you do this, but they do heal quickly. Tuck all the loose fibers in. Sometimes, if you've wrapped it well, which I have in this case, there's no need for anything further. And there you have the second method of repotting a Neofinetia falcata.